All right, today we're going to be taking a look at Mitch Peters' Advanced Snare Drum Studies Etude number 4, one of my favorites in the book. It is the choice for the 2020-2021 All-State Snare Drum Etude. Today we got 5 tips for everyone to get a really good start on learning this piece. Okay, we're not going to go into super deep detail on every little measure beat by beat or anything like that yet, but what we are going to do is give you 5 tips, like I said, that should give you a really good start to getting through this piece efficiently and at a really high level. Okay, so tip number 1 is going to be choose your stickings early and stick with them. So there are 2 main types of stickings you really need to know about. Number 1 is what we call alternating sticking. No secrets there, it's just singles. Every other note you play is another hand. Doesn't matter about the rhythm at all. The other type of sticking that you're going to use a lot in concert snare drum is called lead hand sticking. Lead hand sticking is where one hand, your dominant hand, plays most of the strong beats and the weak hand fills in any other notes that might come up. So in this etude, your strong hand is going to be playing the 8ths and the 16ths, and your weak hand is going to be playing the 32nds in between. So I'm going to be using that sticking a lot through this etude. Okay? Now, some of you might think, oh, this is too basic. Sticking is for drumline or rudimental, who cares, just play the rhythm, right? Yes and no, because the sticking is going to help you achieve that rhythm consistently. It's going to give you a consistent interpretation of the rhythm, and more importantly, it's going to actually give it a certain sound and hopefully a certain character that you're going to be able to evoke every time that rhythm comes back in the piece. Okay, tip number 2 is going to be to choose your roll speed early and wisely. When I say choose your roll speed, what I mean is you're not just going to play a roll, whatever that means, on a snare drum. You're going to move your hands in a rhythmic fashion, and you're going to be getting, hopefully, exactly consistent bounces hand to hand as well. When you practice this piece slowly, as you should be doing, you're going to practice the same rhythm in the roll that you would otherwise. So I'll give you a quick little example from the piece, Etude number 4, right? But go ahead and take a quick look at that second line. So I would play 6-tuplets for my rolls pretty much throughout. There's a couple exceptions, and we'll talk about that later. But my general rule of thumb is going to be 6-tuplet speed for this tempo. It just kind of feels nice and like it fills out the sound to me. So the rhythm for me at 3 would be, right? And then I'm going to put the roll on top of that. So something like that. When I take that tempo down, I'm also going to play the roll speed the exact same rhythmically in the new tempo. So let's say instead of, as our, close at least, I didn't check, to our written tempo, we're going to bring that down to a much more attainable tempo for some of you guys reading, and we're going to go maybe, still not actually slow. Now I'm going to play the roll like that. So with the roll, okay, so I'm not worried at the slow tempo about it being super pristinely filled out in the roll. I'm worried about it being even, and when I take it up to tempo, if I chose my roll speed wisely, it's going to be filled out. Okay, so tip number 3 is going to be focus on the problem spots. Every piece is going to have certain measures that are trickier than others. So if you're smart, you're going to figure those out first. Every time you want to play a run through of the piece, if you get stuck on the same spot, you're reinforcing, whether you know it or not, your brain is absorbing, I can't play that measure. I mess up every time I get to that measure. You do not want to reinforce that. You want to get used to the feeling of nailing it all the time. So that means you have to give yourself an opportunity to nail it, which usually means play it slower. If you play it slower, you're going to give yourself time to really do exactly what you want to do, and you're going to gradually increase that tempo. We have tons of time between now and the recording due, whenever that's going to be, I don't know. We have tons of time to bump that tempo up day by day by day, and you're going to feel really good about it the entire time, and it's going to lead to a really, really successful and clean performance and confident performance. Tip number 4 is going to be to practice the rudiments of the piece. Now, when I say rudiments, I don't just mean like paradiddles and flams and all that kind of stuff, although of course I mean that. That's super important for snare drum, obviously, whether it's inside or outside or whatever. But you're gonna kind of come up with your own rudiments of the piece. So in this piece, an example of a rudiment, quote unquote, would be, I would say, the opening rhythmic gesture. So it sounds something like this. Just that. I would practice that a lot. And in fact, if you stay tuned, at the end of this little 5-tip list, I'm going to give you a few exercises that are going to help you start getting your hands in shape to play these rhythms really evenly. And we're going to start with an exercise really kind of getting you comfortable with all these 30-second binary rhythms. Other examples of rudiments in this piece would be, of course, the actual rudiments, flams, roughs, 4-stroke roughs, all this type of stuff. But other sort of Peters-isms, if you will, or just kind of rudiments in this piece are going to be things like crescendo rolls. Okay, he loves crescendo rolls. And really crescendo rhythms, crescendo singles. He also loves crescendo singles. Super exciting. Snare drum gets loud, it's interesting, it's exciting. That's what people write a lot of the time is crescendo. You don't have too many diminuendos. If you did a big survey of all the snare drum repertoire, I bet you'd find way more crescendos than diminuendos. So make sure you really feel comfortable nailing those crescendos smoothly and consistently. Okay, tip number 5. This is a big one. Tip number 5, we're talking about practice tools. It's going to be use all your practice tools you have available early and often. So practice tools could be anything from a metronome to a mirror, right? Just kind of basic stuff that we probably all have laying around. But it can also be a little bit more advanced stuff like your phone, if you have a smartphone. It has an audio and or video recorder on it. We can talk about ways you can use both that are going to be helpful, okay? It's not just necessarily video's better just because it has video. You're going to want to listen to yourself without watching too, because you're going to have a slightly different perspective. One more like the committee is going to have, by the way. But also people, okay? Resources like YouTube, your teacher, whether it's your band director at your school or your private lesson teacher, or even just your friends that maybe are a little bit more experienced than you and are, you know, willing to help out. You can learn a ton from your peers, and I would really encourage you guys to try and do this together. You're going to help each other out a ton. Okay, so that's it for our 5 little tips. Quick recap. Tip number 1, choose your stickings ahead of time and know why you're choosing them. Number 2, choose your roll speeds ahead of time. We'll talk way more about rolls in another video, probably a few other videos. Snare drum rolls are a whole other can of worms, but choose your roll speeds accordingly. And if you're not sure where to start, like I said, try 6 tuplets, and then you can change from there when you feel it's necessary. Tip number 3 is going to be focus on those trouble spots that are going to give you the most trouble and take the most time. Might as well start chipping away at those earlier on in the process so that you can really peak at the right time, right? Tip number 4 is going to be identify and kind of come up with your own rudiments as well as master, of course, the standard 40 rudiments. There's lots of great resources available already for that. We might make a couple specific to this etude, but for now, just practice your rudiments. You're going to get better at snare drum, I promise. And then tip number 5 was use every single practice tool at your disposal shamelessly. Whether it's a metronome, recorder, your friends, hey, can I play this for you? Guess what? They're going to give you some good feedback that you might not have thought of on your own. It's like a free lesson, really, especially if you have, you know, mature friends. It can be really, really great. All right, now that we got those 5 tips out of the way, I'm going to give you a few basic kind of exercises to get your hands moving and get you acclimated to this type of playing. So the first thing we're going to do is just straight up quarter notes at 76, and you know, you can of course again take this slower, and I recommend you do, but just to save time I'm going to play at 76. And we're going to add a note, and you'll kind of see the process. I'll put a PDF down in the link below for you to download it if you need that sheet music, or if you can just watch and play along, good for you. Here's it is. Okay, so that just kind of goes through a few different variations of 32nd note groups, starting with just the quarter notes, getting really used to the time, getting comfortable with the motions that produce that rhythm, right? Then going into the double with the pickup 16th, filling it in with the left hand, adding it up. Those are going to cover a lot of the little things that come back over and over and over again in this piece. Exercise number 2 is going to be kind of a simplified version of a little exercise we used to call math game. I used to play this in high school drumline, where what we're going to do is we're basically going to take a constant tempo, right? Here's our 76 tempo, but we're going to add 1 to the number in the rhythm. So 8th notes, triplets, 16th notes. You'll get the idea. We're going to, like I said, do a simple version here that hopefully will give you some inspiration for how you can make it a little bit your own. And again, you can change that up, you can make the lengths different, you can add in repeats, you can change the numbers that you're working with, but something like that to get your hands used to those gear shifts, okay? Then finally, number 3, I love flams. This is a quick little flam builder exercise for you guys. So we're gonna start with a bunch of same hand flams, just to again, work on our consistency at the execution of the rudiment itself, right? Then we're going to start bringing the numbers down, going to do a little paradiddle pattern with flams, and then we're going to do kind of a little math game that we just did, but with flams. Let's see how fast we can get it. I don't know. Let's see. So here's starting with 8. Fell apart at the end there, okay? But that's the point with this, is to push yourself, and you want to be able to play way faster than the 16th notes at 76, because that's your test, right? You want to be able to have way beyond that in your wheelhouse, so that when you do the actual test, the actual etude, it feels relaxed, it feels easy, it feels like it's not anywhere near your limit, okay? So try those 3 out. See if they get your hands moving in a good way, and we'll come back with a lot more other stuff on the other etudes. So thanks so much for checking us out. If you like that or you got some value from that, please go ahead and subscribe, maybe even drop a like. We're going to be trying to really crank out a ton of content for you guys to help you with this, with the other etudes, with the recording process, with all kinds of more specific stuff to really help you get to sound your best. But this is just something to get you started. The Etude just came out 2 days ago, so we're filming this Wednesday here. So hopefully you enjoyed. Thanks so much. See you soon.